here in Manchester, New Hampshire, covering the New Hampshire primaries, and lots of politicians, lots of commentators walking through. But we're here for Radio Row, fellow talk show hosts, and we found one that we love. It's Dr. Gina Loudon from down in Alabama. How are you, Dr. Gina?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
If Mike, our cameraman, can zoom in on your necklace there. That's how we met you yesterday. You showed us your gun necklace.
Yes.
You're big on guns. Actually, you were here sponsored by a gun firm in Alabama.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Yeah, Hoover Tactical Firearms. It's a massive showroom full of every kind of gun you could ever want, and they are a client of mine, an advertising client on my show, and they said, we want to sponsor you to go to New Hampshire, go get them. And so little did I know the kind of freedom I was about to experience visiting New Hampshire.
Now, you're beautiful and you love guns, so our audience is going to love you instantly. Tell us about yourself, tell us about your show, and tell us about your background with the Second Amendment.
Yeah, my show is the Dr. Gina Show, and one of the fun stories, the thing that happened to me was I was going through the TSA, and I had on a belt buckle. It was a Derringer with a little crystal panel, pink crystal panel on it, very jewelry-esque. This is not like one where they actually took a gun and decorated it and made it into a belt buckle. It was jewelry, and of course I was groped for that in front of my 9-year-old daughter, who was very traumatized by it, and so I wrote a story about it for WorldNet Daily. And got a little bit of buzz out of that because it really was just completely wrong. And not only that, they were going to confiscate it from me. They would not let me get on the plane. And again, remembering this is a piece of jewelry. This is like this, as if I'm some kind of threat because I have a symbol of a gun on me, let alone a gun, which I think we should all be able to carry on airlines anyway. We'd all be safer. But anyway, so that's one of the sort of fun pieces of things that I've done regarding guns. But the Second Amendment to me, I was in college doing grad school actually, and there were 3 rapes in my building, and my building was flanked by a Salvation Army office and a welfare office. And so we had all sorts of people hanging around there, and I realized at some point that I was tremendously unsafe, and checked into the idea of getting a gun and learning about it. And I ended up just getting a taser at that point. But since then realized how important it was, especially traveling and things like that. I just, as a mom, like the idea of not feeling like I am vulnerable. I love that ad I read somewhere that says, is having a gun compensating for something? Yeah, it's compensating for the fact that I weigh 115 pounds and that I'm 5'1", and you're not. And most people I run into are not as small as me. I stood next to Megyn Kelly last night, and it was like, so I am a likely victim, especially if I have my children with me. And so the moment that I went and learned how to use a gun and learned how to teach my children to use a gun and to be safe with a gun, I feel so empowered as a woman. And I think I teach classes with Hoover Tactical Firearms, and I go and I speak to the classes that they have there, and I wouldn't say I teach them, but I have the opportunity to speak. And when you ask women, how do you feel about this gun in front of you, they're always afraid. And men don't realize, because men are kind of, maybe you can't admit it, or maybe you're just really not afraid, I don't know, but women are really afraid of guns. We are programmed not to feel comfortable with guns. It's interesting. You walk into a classroom, just did it the other night, 75 women there, and I said, how many of you are comfortable with that gun? And I had 2 hands in the whole room go up. 2 hands. And this is in Alabama. We're a pretty free state too. Not New Hampshire, but we're a pretty free state, and we're a gun-loving state for sure. And so the moment, though, you just see the light bulb go off. You see where the woman has completely understood that she now has that power that equalizes her with whoever her opponent might be, regardless of her size or physical strength, how many children she has with her, all of that. It is truly, to me, a really beautiful thing to see that light bulb moment where the woman goes, oh, wow, I can do this.
People on the other side, gun control advocates, will listen to this and think, oh my God, you're teaching your children how to use guns.
Yeah.
What do you say to people like that, how it is a normal and a good thing to do?
I say that my children are small too. I don't teach them before they're ready. I know my children. Nobody's better capable of looking at my children and telling whether they are intellectually, physically ready to learn about guns. I know that. And also, nobody cares more about my children's well-being than I do. And so I'm going to be the one who's going to teach them that. I was telling my son the other day, who's 9, I was telling him, little boys your age fought in wars. You know, they are capable of being responsible with weapons. It's not to say that I think a 9-year-old should have a gun, and my son does not have a gun. But it is to say that, you know, children can be taught, if necessary, to be responsible. And my kids know, they know the rules. They know stop, don't touch. You know, they know it all. And they even know if there's no orange cap. I mean, the whole thing. We are very into gun safety in our house. But I want my children to not be afraid of guns the way I was. I was afraid to get a gun to protect myself when I was probably most likely to be raped in my life, which was that time I told you about in college. And so, so my advice is, this is one little point I always love women to know. I had a shooting expert on my show. I have a section on my show. My show is called The Dr. Gina Show, and I have a section called Girls and Guns, because for me, this is a personal, almost a mission field for me. And I had a guy come in last week, a firearms expert from believe it or not, LA. He bought a few magazines and things he can't buy in LA while he was at Hoover Tactical. And he was on my show. His name is Haley Press. And he told me that women, when they start shooting, are actually more accurate shots, just straight off the bat, than men are, which I didn't know, but I had a listener take me on who doesn't like women doing anything except in the kitchen, I think, barefoot and pregnant. So I looked it up and researched, and it's absolutely a fact. And so this is what I want to say to your viewers. If you are a man and you love a woman, whether it's your daughter, your wife, your aunt, your grandma, your whatever, know that if you take her in and let her shoot, she probably will rock it. And it probably will be a moment she will never forget, and a gift that no one else can give you, that moment where you realize, I can do this. And so I think some men will look at their wives or their grandmas or their moms or whatever and say, wow, she's little, you know, she's maybe not very physically fit. She maybe doesn't have that great of aim when we did the basketball court one time, can't play tennis, who knows what they're thinking, you know. They should know that I have seen it again and again and again. You take that woman, you give her a gun, you put her on a shooting range, and she will rock it, and she will walk out of there 10 feet taller in her own mind than she went in. So I just want to encourage people with that little, you know, that one experience is probably going to go really, really well of taking her in and letting her shoot. That's no commitment. That's not buying a gun. That's not getting her concealed carry. That's none of that. That's just taking a woman to shoot one time.
How can our listeners and our viewers find out more about you and the show?
My show is from 4 to 7 Central Time every day, Monday through Friday, and it plays in the Midwest and the South. And my website is drginaloudon.com, and they can find the stations there.
Dr. Gina, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Great time.